Hello. Man, there's a lot of shit going on today. We're gonna get into it. This is Real Sankara Hours. Real Sankara Hours. Follow us at Sankara Hours on Twitter, and then if you want to subscribe to us and keep not just this podcast, but if you really believe in Black independent media, you should definitely subscribe $5 a month at www.patreon.com/realsuncarhours. You'll get bonus episodes. We unlocked one of our bonus episodes, by the way, on Harry Haywood and Black self-determination. Today we're going to be talking about obviously the uprisings going on throughout this country against police violence. So anyway, I'm Adam Hudson. Follow me at AdamHudson5 on Twitter.
And I'm Peter M. Gunn. Follow me at MGunnPeter. Independent media is incredibly important in this time. Alternative forms of media, because I'm not even gonna try to watch CNN or whatever.
Yeah.
Because when people said the revolution will not be televised, I don't think people really understood what that meant. It meant that the people that own TV stations are not gonna give you the fucking truth.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I'll just say this as a pitch, not like a quote unquote sales pitch, but I think it's something that's worth keeping in mind. Is I was on a Twitch with Andre last week, and I've heard from other people who are outside of the Black community and who are rightfully pissed at not just the police murder of George Floyd, even though that was basically the sort of spark that lit all this, but Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, the countless numbers of Black people who've been gunned down and murdered by a police. And if you're wondering what you can do, supporting independent Black media, any kind of independent Black media, is very important because we're not attached to corporate funding or government or any other kind of source of funding. Our funding comes from patrons, so that allows us to basically say whatever the hell we want. But it also allows us to basically just say the truth and just give you another perspective. So if you want to support the Black struggle in a concrete way, you can support Black media. And we are part of Black media. So definitely, www.patreon.com/realsankara hours. That keeps us afloat. And so we can keep giving you just good stuff, good commentary on what's going on right now, especially
the other thing is that I certainly have a number of white independent media left podcasts that I listen to and enjoy, but they're just not equipped to handle the situation. I mean, they're trying. I don't think they've done a bad job, but it's just a fundamentally different perspective. But let's get into it, I guess.
Yeah, you were Peter. You're at a protest in Portland, Maine, right?
Yeah.
Right?
There have been a couple things have been going on since Monday. I couldn't go to the one on Monday because I was at work, which is a whole other situation.
Right.
That was pretty militant, and they did tear gas and rubber bullet people, and they arrested 26 people, and horror of horrors. And I swear to God, my manager was out for blood for this one. They smashed the window of an Urban Outfitters, and maybe they took some things. These animals, But then the next night there was kind of a similar situation, but today it was very tame. It wasn't even really a protest. It was a rally. It was, a bunch of white people standing outside City Hall, listening to, mostly teenagers. Honestly, it was a lot of young people speaking, which nothing wrong with that, but it was a lot of pretty tepid demands, and then they literally was like, all right, now everyone go home after 2 hours. And they did, because they follow directions. And it did leave me a little dispirited because when this stuff first broke out last Thursday, about a week ago, it was like, holy shit. This could actually be the thing, just because of the speed at which it developed. The level of militancy, though, I still don't know the circumstances around the police station burning down. There are some weird things with that case.
Yeah,
but it happened so quickly that the nonprofits and orgs that usually are managing this stuff got caught flat-footed, and so there was some real militancy involved, and that's a big part of why we saw the response that we saw. And I mean, just so everyone's clear, because I don't know how much the the mainstream media has been reporting on this, but they've been, people have been dragged out of cars and beaten. They've been tear gassing, residential neighborhoods. In a couple cities, Indianapolis and Louisville at least, they've used live rounds and have killed people. They've beaten pregnant women. The cops have firing wooden bullets, doing all really just the leash was off.
There is a video in Los Angeles where there was it was a neighborhood, and I think they're enforcing a curfew, and there was they were driving up to a group of black I think teenagers, and basically like they were driving around in their police SUV, and one of them comes out with like a gun. I think they were firing rubber bullets, and it's basically a drive-by.
I saw that one.
Yeah, there was a drive-by. They were shooting rubber bullets, and I think one of the bullets actually hit a car's window and broke it. It was the windshield.
The NYPD, though I don't know if this is necessarily related to the protest, but they did shoot a 13-year-old 19 times. I think that was last night. This has been really kind of an unprecedented display of the full power, the full fury of the repressive state apparatus.
And who's been giving them cover lately?
Who?
The New York Times. There was a article in
the lying, failing New York Times
by Tom Cotton, and the headline is "Send in the troops. The nation must restore order. The military stands by."
Yeah, Cotton is we're not going to get into him. We're not going to waste time on him.
No, we don't. Now. But it's just something worth mentioning in the context of,
Yeah, Trump's threatened to send in the military. I kind of don't think that he will, just because there are already like 3 levels of, repressive forces that like states can already use. The like city police, then state highway patrol, and then also the National Guard. And really under most circumstances, that should be enough, depending on how long and how, militant this thing is. We could enter a period of attrition where like the actual capacities of these forces are stressed to the limit. I mean, it's authoritarianism is expensive. The amount of cops you have to bus in and pay overtime and give them hotels and pay for their catering. One really amazing story that came out of Columbus that I was so proud of was this shitty taco. I mean, the tacos aren't that good. I've never been there, but everyone I've heard say the tacos aren't that good. It's like a gentrification taco place, but they got an order of 500 tacos for the cops, and the employees just walked out. They weren't going to do it. And then they tried to fire them, but the media got hold of it, and now they're trying to walk it back. But that's the kind of stuff where I was like, more if more stuff like that happens, in a situation where like the material support in the form of like workers having to do the jobs to support the authoritarian state, if they refuse to do it, then it can't continue. So I think, I don't know how things are going to play out. But those were things that was something that was revealed to me where I was like, oh yeah, wow. there are, I mean, there are possibilities to really actually bring the whole system down.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it seems like this is one of those weird moments where, like, I don't think we know where it's going to go, but the possibilities, like, the range of possibilities seems a lot wider.
That said, it does seem that the typical, I don't even know what to call it, the movement management industry. That sounds like a good.
Yeah, I think I know.
Yeah.
Kind of like they're connected with nonprofits and shit.
Yeah,
like
the
that.
Constellation of like the Democratic Party, grant funded nonprofits, because not every 501c3 is co-opting the movement, but certainly a lot of organization, a lot of the institutional ones, anything with an endowment definitely is, and people that rely on grants, from people with endowments are just always inherently, constrained in what they're able to do. And, to some degree, I'm just going to say it, to some degree, the organization Black Lives Matter is limited in that way. I mean, I don't know the full source of their funding, but Black Lives Matter is like an organizational structure, and it is like a nonprofit, and it isn't necessarily the organization that's leading everything. So on some level, it doesn't entirely make sense to call this a Black Lives Matter protest movement. And, we can get into the specifics of that, but, it can morph. And I think that, new organizations that are more nimble and can, coordinate with more militant-minded people are going to be on order. And also, to be fair, there were a lot of those organizations, in Ferguson in the beginning, and it was just, they got flooded. As soon as it blew up. So that's always something to be.
I didn't go into any protests physically because I'm also still concerned about just living with family and being around large groups of people and contracting the virus and stuff like that. So because that's another thing is like next to these protests there's basically 3 crises going on simultaneously. So it's like a perfect storm. So there's the uprisings against police violence throughout the country, and then there's still the pandemic, and then there's still the economic depression. So this is a very unique time because we have 3 crises coming together, and I think because everyone's been indoors for so long, and we're all a lot of people are watching the same. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying like seeing the video of Ahmaud Arbery just get killed and like hunted down like an animal, and then see the video of George Floyd. I think that it sort of
it reopened.
It lit a spark in people. On top of the fact that like the economy sucks, we're basically in a depression.
Which textbook. This is like the literal textbook case for social unrest. Is where we are right now. Empire in decline. Kind of dysfunctional ruling class, economy in the toilet.
Yeah, so we're in it right now, and so I've and for the first time ever, you're supposed to be in public, right?
Wearing a mask.
Exactly. So I've been trying to find some protests in my area, but we're under curfew right now until I think they just. At first it was 6 p.m., now it's 8 p.m., and I think there were some protests near where I live, but they got shut down, and, there's a curfew, so, but I did manage to catch the AJ Plus live stream of the protest in Oakland, near Lake Merritt. And I think there was, according to Dina Takuri, who was doing the live stream, she estimated that there was around, 1,000 people. There probably could have been more, but that was, her sort of general estimate. And people were just marching, around the lake. It was I think early afternoon, basically, like around noontime, I think. And the energy, like from what I observed from the stream, was I mean, yeah, people were lively, but it didn't seem as militant. It's just people are passionate, and there were some speeches that were like, we have to educate our youth, stuff like that. And so yeah, and then I think people kind of quickly, it seemed like people quickly dispersed after that. I was just watching the stream of the Oakland one, and then I watched Obama's speech. So he gave a speech.
Oh,
yeah, God. So I thought
yeah, he had to jet. I'm sure he like jetted in directly from Geffen's yacht to do this, and he's going right back, and Geffen's got, a nice teenager waiting for him. Parody.
So he was not on a yacht, based on the video. I think he was like at his home, the Obama Foundation, or My Brother's Keeper. Anyway, but he did his typical sort of like, he was like, basically he was very hopeful, just seeing young people being active, but it was the same sort of middle ground stuff. So he did acknowledge that the pain of what he said, communities of color. He didn't particularly isolate the black community, it was communities of color. Yeah, so he said that.
Someone needs to teach Obama about black erasure.
Right, yeah. And so he was saying, like, I sympathize with the protesters, and, the looters are a small population and the rest are peaceful protesters. Then he also said, like, there's some good folks in law enforcement who want change as well. And I thought, like, oh man, he's out of touch, man. Like, no, I don't think like the gravity has shifted. The ground has shifted. No, I don't think really people are buying that. It's not 2008, dude. It's not 2000. It's just 2020.
I don't. Well, then again, the low point of the rally today was a cop came up to speak, and what she was there for was to apologize, because I guess 3 hours earlier in a press conference she said Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and she was like. And I guess immediately someone's like, you really shouldn't have said that. So she's like, I'm here to apologize. I'm trying to be.
Oh, she checked her privilege, huh?
Yes. Cops are now checking their privilege, so that means they're gonna stop.
Yeah,
I believe
she checked her cop privilege. She checked her cop privilege. I think is that in the How to Be an Anti-Racist book? I wonder if that's in there.
Yes. Well, once you put cops through implicit bias training, then their material function just goes away, and they understand.
So now that you say that was basically what Obama was saying. It was a very much like, it was a lot of like very like implicit bias training, use of force policy, and it's like, all these sound good in paper, but I'm gonna make a comparison. I've been listening to Adam Clayton Powell Jr.'s speeches. I read his autobiography when I was a teenager, and it made a huge impression on me. He was an African-American congressman from Harlem. He was also friends with Malcolm X and even the Black Panthers. He actually, because he was a minister in Harlem, and so like he actually allowed the Black Panthers to set up meetings at his church. So imagine this, like a congressman is like, okay, yeah, I'll let these like armed revolutionaries hold their meetings in my church while I sit in Congress. So compare that to like the politicians we have now in Congress. So I was listening to his speech. He gave a speech at UCLA in January of 1968, and he was talking about the Great Society program, like the War on Poverty. And like this is something I think, like, especially when we look back at the 60s, there's a lot of stuff that gets sanitized. So like even a lot of Black radicals at the time were pretty critical of the War on Poverty program. Like I think we look back, and not just collectively but the discourse anyway, particularly in like liberal to even progressive media, looks back on Johnson and his War on Poverty through, I think, rose-colored glasses. But at the time, which was evidenced by Powell's speech, is that people at the time Black radicals at the time were pretty critical of Johnson's war on poverty. And so Powell actually said he actually regretted voting for one of Johnson's bills because he was basically saying, like, look, like, this money didn't actually go to the community. It was basically just going to managers, essentially. And so he said that, he said that in a speech because he was ousted from Congress in some scandal. I mean, it was sort of like money corruption scandal, even though, like, other people, I mean, Congress is full of, like, corrupt money type people, but basically people at the time were like, okay, they're just going after him because he was a little bit too uppity and a little too radical for especially the white political establishment in Congress. So
they hadn't learned, I guess they hadn't learned the art of tokenization.
Right. No, this is like the late 60s. But when I was thinking about Powell's critique of the Great Society programs and the war on poverty programs, it made me think about Obama's speech. Is because a lot of things he was proposing were just basically like very like piecemeal patchwork reform, but like a lot of people who are on the ground are saying like defund the police, just cut police funding, and and also I think one thing I would add to that is actual community control of police, like because he mentioned this is important. He mentioned citizens review boards, but he never said giving them the ability to hire and fire police. It was just oversight. It was oversight and racial bias training, but not like giving the community power over the police in terms of hiring and firing. And so I thought, like, okay, so they're going to take, the cause, but they're going to do like piecemeal patchwork reform. They're going to try.
We'll see if they can succeed. I don't know if people are I think people are a little bit smarter than that, but I don't know. I also saw crowds, erupt in rapturous joy on the side of like cops taking kneels. So I don't entirely know where the masses are, but one thing I do want to zero in on is it's hilarious that you said managers, because it is like the problem, all these sort of institutional problems get to be solved by more bureaucracy, and the whole thing is that like cops don't fucking care. To them, that's just like more paperwork and more politicians telling them how to do their jobs. And on some level, they're right. Not that I give a shit, but you think a fucking it's like you think a cop cares about implicit bias training? If anything, you're just like teaching them to be more racist, because they'll just turn it around and be like, oh no, like I didn't react fast enough to drawing my gun on the black guy.
Yeah.
That's how these people think. The reason defunding the police is like an actual worthwhile demand that I do get behind is because that's like the only thing that can actually, make them hurt, is cutting their budget.
And they soak up. I mean, if you look at police department, like city funding, police departments take up a huge chunk. It's almost like the Pentagon when it comes to the national budget.
It's exactly the same thing. For LA, it's like literally half of the entire budget. Oakland is like 40%. I looked it up in Columbus. It was basically a third. Minneapolis was only 15%, but which I was surprised at.
Because the thing is like a lot of times what police do, particularly in local precincts like municipalities, is that they're doing the job of social workers. So, but it's like cops are basically like social workers, but with guns and a ton of money. So it's like the funding that goes to police right now could be going into, like, if you defund the police, funding other social programs that actually do deal with crime and inequality, so that like there wouldn't really be a need quote unquote for such heavy-handed policing. But this sort of need for policing is sort of artificially created politically.
Well, that's part and parcel of the neoliberal program, which is like austerity, but the to combat austerity, or to enforce it, then you need to grow the repressive apparatus, and you just have a bunch of shitty ass, cowardly, fucking mayors and city council people who will just do whatever the police want, and they just give them more money every single year. And I mean, all right, fair enough. Like, if you try to go against the police department, they are fucking goons. at the same time, like, dude, what the fuck did
Right.
we elect you
Yeah,
for?
exactly.
You know?
No,
Like, if this whole democracy thing that you people keep talking about is supposed to have any fucking salience, then it's like, yeah, you need to actually do something in the interest of the people against the, you know, because here's the thing. It's not that the police aren't accountable. They are accountable. They're accountable to the Chamber of Commerce. They're very accountable to them. You know, if they do something the Chamber of Commerce doesn't like, they'll change. Okay? That's who. So, and it's like, yes, the police do protect and serve. That's who they protect and serve.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, and that was, you know, I said, I was thinking about Adam Clayton Powell Jr.'s speech about, like, the critique of the war on poverty, and how, like, it really didn't, because I wanted to compare it to right now, because, like, there's a lot of comparisons to, you know, the 1968, and a lot of the context of that was, you know, deep poverty and the assassination of Dr. King, and that's what sparked riots throughout the country. And so, you know, the liberal establishment of the time, particularly under Johnson and the Democrats, were like, okay, we're going to have, like, this war on poverty. But even at the time, a lot of black radicals were like, wait, this is not enough. This is just, like, more bureaucracy.
It was, yeah, I mean, even if, what the fuck is that thing called? Not the
it was Moynihan. It was Patrick.
Yeah.
The
Moynihan report. I was like, I knew it started with an M. The Moynihan report, like, called for the redistribution of wealth, like federal job guarantees, like all that kind of stuff. Like, back in the, I mean, that was back when Keynesianism was still around. But it was like, even then they knew what the fucking problem was. They're all just too cowards.
Right, and I think, like, what if there was a similar Moynihan report for right now? Like, I'm just sort of spitballing this from the top of my head. Let's say, like, by December, especially when school starts kicking in and kids, because a lot of the people who are out there are kids. So once school starts kicking in, let's say in September, and these protests die down, I wonder. Again, I'm just spitballing. I don't know, but, like, what if there was a similar sort of Moynihan report released for 2020? What would it say? Because I can't even picture even the Democrats of today even going as far as the fucking Moynihan report, which at the time was still critiqued by a lot of progressives and black radicals.
I mean, it was very paternalistic.
Very
in the way it talked about
very paternalistic, especially about the black family. Yeah, I wonder. Like, I'm just drawing a parallel between now and in the '60s and what can be learned, because this is such a very, like, everything's up in the air and it's, like, you know, hard to fully make sense. But sometimes you can draw parallels when they do apply.
I mean, what's different about now versus the '60s is that the '60s was the point when the American empire was basically at its peak, and, you know, the super profits were rolling in, and so there was enough people the ruling class believed that, like, there's enough money to, you know, throw people a couple bones, you know, even though it's still not enough ever. But, you know, now that's less so, and the bourgeoisie are even less cooperative, and in fact they much would rather, you know, draw up their own stupid fucking profits and you know, try to do it themselves, which will be even less effective. And so there's a retrenchment, I think, that's going to be coming, and that's the thing that I don't know how that's going to play out in this context.
I think you said something about attrition that I just wanted to say I agree with, because I think you said it earlier, but war. I think there is going to be some sort of like prolonged war of attrition between the people, the masses who are protesting, versus the police and state apparatus. And I don't know if, like, one side is going to win, because one side, the state apparatus, has a lot of guns and they're willing to use them, but the people have numbers, and so it's like, which side, like, has more stamina to last?
Yeah. It's like the playoffs. Exactly. Who wants it more? I mean, what I certainly there was a mentality, I guess in the ancient days of Friday, feels like
Yeah.
10 years ago, where it was just like, no, we're fucking done with this now. I mean, people can think that they're ready for, a long fight, but if the leaders aren't there, if the support isn't there, and if, the strategy isn't there, and if the sort of designated organizers or leaders aren't able to, maneuver quickly enough and adapt to changing situations, then yeah, we will burn out, but, or just get co-opted by the libs, or, it's like, yeah, there's the chuds who want blood, and I don't think they're not going to get their orgiastic race war shit.
Yeah.
Let me just say a couple of things about the race war. The reason that it's incredibly stupid, and the reason you should never take it seriously, is because these fucking idiots don't understand that war is political. They think that they think war is just the natural state of things, and then politics is like a, layer of dressing on top of that. But it's not. It's the other way around. Famous Lenin quote: "War is politics by other means." War is a way in which classes, seek to gain things for themselves because they can't do it through existing political.
I hate to be a nerd, but also Clausewitz said something similar about war. Yeah, but
yeah. I mean, it may not be a Lenin quote.
We'll still credit Lenin. I mean, he deserves his props.
These guys, they want this thing so bad, but they have no. Even the Confederacy at least had like enough of a functioning bourgeoisie to do a pitch to like the internet, to Europe and stuff, and be able to put that stuff together. I don't think they have no political messaging. Like you're not gonna get a lot of people to want to sign up.
Also, here's what's different, and this is something I actually, when it was like the one part of Obama's speech that I did agree with, is that he said, if you look at the crowd of these protests, it's more representative of the country, like the masses of the country. And there was a poll done, I forgot where, but I'll try to find it and put it in the show notes. Basically, the majority of the country supports the protest, even if people they have public opinion on people's side.
I saw a Monmouth poll, and actually even a majority supported burning down the police station. So even if it was an op, and I don't know, I'm not necessarily going to speculate, but even if it was an op, it was, so they did
right. It backfired on them if it was if it was actually
or if they were trying to destroy evidence is the other thing I've seen people talk about, which I don't know, maybe, but it's people just had an understanding of just no, people are, we're within our right to do this. And this is kind of the thing I do want to say in terms of it being co-opted, is that on some level it'll only be co-opted if we want to be co-opted.
Mm-hmm.
If people stay and bring their energy and don't get cowed, because what liberals love to do is they love to position themselves as the most serious arbiters of progress, and they are trying so hard, and they're so determined. And how dare you question them, and how dare you push for anything more? And if you do, it's because you're ungrateful and you're an adventurist and you're, you're privileged and all this stuff. And you just have to be there and be like, no, I know exactly what you're doing. I know exactly what's going on. We're here for this, and that's what we need. That's why we're here, and that's what we have to do. And you just can't, if you just are direct, then, they'll most of them will realize okay, we are technically supposed to listen to you, I guess.
Speaking of listening, I want to kind of dig into this because we were talking about it before we started recording. Is what can people do, specifically white people, and also other non-black people, like non-black POC, but especially white people, like, because I've been hearing this a lot, and like, because I've been hearing, like, because one thing that's interesting.
It's not, Adam, it's not our job to educate them. We don't have to tell them anything.
Well, if they pay us for our emotional labor by subscribing to www.com/RealSunCarHours, so patreon.com/RealSunCarHours, pay us for our emotional labor here.
Hella Black goes in on that. They're always like, if you're white, don't consume media
right.
free. Pay up.
Yeah, look, hey, let's be real, like, black independent media, we don't have the same kind of budget that white media does, so
we don't really have any budget right now. I think I'm probably gonna give whatever Patreon money I have to, like, a bail fund or something.
But yeah, like, so I wanna kind of set this up because there was a TikTok video that went viral of this 16-year-old white girl who lives in Louisiana, basically saying, like, and I think she represents, like, a lot of young Zoomers, basically, so Gen Z. I don't know what, I think the cutoff is, like, what, you have to be born after 97 or something like that, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 95, I think, because I think my cousin is, like, just barely in the millennium.
So somewhere around, like, the mid to late 90s is, like, the oldest Zoomers, but, like, a lot of the people out protesting are, early 20s and their teens. And so like, so she was talking about, like, how she lives in Louisiana and her parents think the George Floyd murder was justified, and basically she was like,
wow, it is
right.
Yes, I don't think I've heard anyone say it was.
Yeah, like, I mean, basically, hold up. Let me. I'm gonna try to find. Someone retweeted the. Let me find it, because it was Okay, yeah, there's a TikTok video. I'll put the TikTok video in the show notes so people can see. But there is a writer, Safi Halanfara, who said, I'll read through some of the tweets because I think the tweets are interesting because I think they can help set up and contextualize what we're about to talk about. So, basically, Safi was saying, her parents saying George Floyd deserved to die, tearfully disowning them. There's a whole genre of white Gen Z kids processing in real time what's new information to them, but not us, that their parents are sociopaths. And this is like a 35-second TikTok video, and it blew up. And so I'm gonna read, like, I'll just read from maybe a few tweets from white people because so someone said, There are a lot of white parents out there who love white supremacy more than they love their children. Someone else, I think she's Asian who's saying this right here. So, my dad told me he doesn't like my friend because, quote, people with black skin, unquote, people with black skin are evil. And when I told him he's racist, he just said, quote, if you think I'm the bad person now, don't come crying at me when you're older and he beats you up, unquote. And then,
oh god, they're so obsessed with, like, their precious white daughter, like, getting a black boyfriend and getting
and then there's another person who said, being told my entire life I'd be a disgrace to my family if I were liberal is what kept me so conflicted and confused about my beliefs for so long. This shit is so damaging. And then there was someone, I'm trying to find someone said that they were a Mormon, and I'll mention this. So on my Facebook, I posed this question, and I'll just read it because I think it's hold on, let me fucking find this shit. Basically, so, like, it was in response to a lot of this stuff where, like, white people are just realizing, like, basically the extent of racism and violent racism in this country, and are wondering, like, okay, what should we what should we?
Yeah. What can
Yeah.
I
So
do to
I was.
help?
So my question. This is my question. So like, because I'll just say it because I've been kind of going back and forth on this because I see like a lot of white people and to some extent non-black people of color, because I've been noticing other discussion about like anti-blackness within amongst Asians, Latinos, Arabs, Muslims. But so my question was like, I think it's cool I'm okay with seeing white people ask questions, like say things like, we need to be anti-racist, we have to challenge whiteness. So I think that's good, but
Yeah.
the thing I wonder is like, who is this for? Because on one hand, I'm like, it's
Yeah.
part of me is like kind of almost tired, like just hearing white people say, I need to be a better ally. But at the same time, I'm also like, okay, at least they're trying. But the thing is, where I
Yeah.
wonder is, are they doing this because they have a lot of white guilt that they have to get over, or is it because they recognize black people as fully human and recognize blackness in the black
Wow.
community as equally human? Like that's why I go back and forth. And so like a lot of my white friends who are serious about anti-racism answered my question, and I thought it was interesting, and a lot of them said that one of my friends said, at least in the beginning, a lot of white people have to get over that white guilt because they have to. But they all said that like it's a process you have to keep doing. It's not like you can just donate money to like a bail fund and that's it. Like it's a constant thing, and it's so deeply entrenched within this society that it can take a lifetime for quote unquote good white people to get over. So that's like wonder. It's like for
Yeah.
white people and people outside the black community, what can be done? Peter, yeah, why don't you?
I mean, I have
Yeah,
a lot to say about this. First off, overall I hate the question, how can I help? It's almost, for me, it always feels like a setup, because it's like, if I don't have the correct answer and like, this perfect list of things for you to do, then it's my fault. It's my fault that you didn't do
right.
that it's an excuse for
Yeah.
you not to do anything. I mean, like your boss asks you this sometimes,
Mhm.
weirdly enough, whatever. It's a like people love to ask that question to get them out of responsibilities if you don't have anything right there for them to do. And there's certainly things you can do. Yeah, read, listen, think about, when you have certain reactions to things and interrogate those reactions. Yes, do those things. But it's very much like, I feel like oftentimes that question gets asked, because people want, an indulgence in the old Catholic sense, where you could just like buy, you could buy an indulgence and then your sin was forgiven. And I feel like there's like anti-racist indulgence. It's like carbon offsets. It's like, oh well, yes, I just want to know what I can do to make me stop feeling this way, or to make the problem
Right.
go away.
Right. Yeah, keep
And
going. I
I
want to
guess,
respond to that specific point, but keep going. Yes, want to
yeah.
make a note.
It's just like, yeah, it's an ongoing thing, and it's like, you should never ask anyone else that question. Really, is like, I mean, fine if you're like 16 or whatever. I'm talking to like grown ass adults, who don't really have an excuse for not having like gotten around to this shit. They're just now getting around to it or something. It's like, you should have to look at your own life, because I don't live your life, and
Right.
I don't know what you can or cannot do. So you have to look at your own life and, really sit with the problem and, figure out where in your networks and what's in your skill set and how you can contribute, and, do it in a way that doesn't ask for any sort of validation. You're not doing this. You have to do it because personally it affects you to the point that like you really can't live if you're not doing
Yeah.
it. It's like, because that's how everyone else feels, is like they don't really feel like they can survive in the system. So you have to feel at that level. You have to be willing to risk, all the comforts that are, that all the violence of the system is there to give you. You have to be willing to give those things up. If you're not willing to do that, then you really should just.
I agree. Yeah, and I want to like the reason why I brought that up is because I've noticed a lot is that a lot of times those questions, they're not really for black people or to mitigate any harm to black people. What it seems like is these are conversations that white people have amongst white people, but the goal is they just want to feel less guilty about being white in America. Like, that's what a lot of this shit sounds like to me. And even also conversations I've had with white people, even like people I know who I've had to kind of check a little bit on this stuff. That, like, I had to check, like, hey, look, this is not about you. And I think that's something that a lot of white people just don't get over, because when you live in America, and America's largely a white country, everything is kind of about you. Like, the whole world is structured to benefit and be about you. And so it even seeps into the quote-unquote anti-racism. Like, is the anti-racism for white people so they feel less guilty about being white, so they can feel on some level that, like, I'm a good person without doing anything concrete to benefit black people and other colonized people, including Native Americans? Or is it because they see black people and colonized people as equally human, so therefore they feel morally compelled to do something? It doesn't matter what it is. And I think you're right, Peter. Like, it could be like, because think about, like, activism is like I think everyone has something to contribute. Like, even if you're not at the protest, you can do other things. I mean, look, like, I'm not physically at a protest, but like my individual contribution can at least be media, black independent media, right? Like, there's something you can contribute on some level, even if you're not like out on the front lines. You can contribute. But I do think that when everything is about, like, making white people feel less guilty about themselves, like, I don't think that gets us anywhere. But I do know friends of mine who are white, who are, I think, genuinely serious about anti-racism work, is that I think a lot of them feel a moral imperative that, like, this shit is wrong.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing about it is, like, a lot of the stuff we're talking about is, like, if you're an activist,
right,
if you're, like, in the professional left, and most people are not in the professional left, let's call it that. And so it's like a lot of that discourse just doesn't really apply to you. And so a lot of it is just like, don't be an asshole.
Right.
Like, like, you can live, just don't be an asshole. Just, try to understand that you don't understand everything. But there is one thing that I wish white people would do in these situations. That's strike.
Yeah. I agree.
Like,
yes.
Seriously. Like, if, since everyone's talking about rent strikes and all this stuff, and, class consciousness is coming back, why don't we start suffusing that with this movement? If like the entire country is shut down, and if we this could be something we could actually organize a general strike around. Next time the cops kill someone, that might really
that'd
actually
be sick.
scare them.
Yeah, that'd be something. Yeah, a general. I mean, especially a lot of these. There's a lot of white people in unions. Yeah, if you're in like a teachers union or whatever, a nurses union, whatever, like, you can organize a general strike. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like seriously, it almost raises the question, like, why has that never even been engaged? Maybe it's because it's still like a professional managerial, movement in many ways, in the sense like that's the provenance of its funding, its epistemology, and most activism is, because activism centers like the individual, and it doesn't center like the workplace. It doesn't center like people's class and their position and their relationship to the means of production and all that stuff. So that's I think that's a problem, and I think if we could, because look, multiracial solidarity is important in these situations, and that's why I really dislike when it's like, okay, well, if you're white, you're not allowed to be protest. And then I'm like, okay, well, what
Right.
if I show up? And then it's like, what, but I'm pretty pale, I'm not gonna lie. And then it's like, okay, well, am I allowed to be here? Do I have to explain to people that actually, one drop rule or whatever, like I count as being black? And then it's like, okay, what if they don't believe me or whatever? This is the kind of shit that I'd run into, anyone who's black who like argues on the internet and doesn't have like them in their profile picture, like, finds this out or whatever. And it's just like, it's so, it gets so dumb, and it gets like, I hate to say like it's a means of dividing people, but like race is a fucking stupid concept. It exists, yes, it is made up. It serves a particular function in capitalism. And, it's a deadly concept, but it is stupid. And it is like something that we should get rid of. That is still correct. It's just how, it's just like how entrenched is it, right? And it's like, the cops don't, race, white supremacy and racism exists so that you can have like this, bourgeois life, this petty bourgeois lifestyle. It exists to distract people and feel like, oh, well, now I get to, there's something different, which makes it okay to brutalize this group of people that need to be brutalized for capitalism to function.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, it's like the psychological wages of whiteness and all that stuff. It's true, though. Something I've been thinking about is like the whole privilege discourse. I've been wondering if it's becoming a little outdated in the sense of like, if you go back through the checklist, I don't remember.
It was a knapsack of privilege.
Yeah, the invisible knapsack.
It was it wasn't Tim Wise. It was
Rebecca
Tracer? No. It was. This came out in the 80s. Hold up. Keep talking. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was thinking about was like that. It's basically just like the bonhomie and just like the sense.
Peggy. All right. So Peggy McIntosh. It was Peggy McIntosh. Yeah, this came out.
Right. Who's Rebecca?
She so Invisible Knapsack of White Privilege, that came out in I think 1989.
Yeah. Every like intro to anti-racism class.
I find it very unhelpful, but this is, when we're talking about like white privilege and privilege, all that, like if you want to know like where that concept come from, sorry, 1988 essay, white privilege and male privilege. I think that was it, and then I'm sorry, white privilege and male privilege was 1989. It was edited down to white privilege unpacking the invisible knapsack, and I have been noticing like, like online at least, like there's been like this sort of reading list that everyone can do. It's like, okay, like now that you're pissed, now that you're pissed, here's a reading list, which I think reading lists are cool, but I just wonder like what's in the reading list.
People don't read. Americans don't read. Come on, man. Come on, man.
And so,
come on, man.
So one of the assignments I've been seeing is, at least from some people, is white privilege unpacking the invisible knapsack. So it's like a checklist of privileges that white people have. I think in 1989 it made sense to put it that way, but for 2020, I don't know if it's. I think this is what we're getting at. It's like we don't.
Yeah. So something that I want to say that I've been thinking about, I guess, is that like there's a this sense of belonging to the nation in America, the white nation. Whereas like or like cops will stop like a white kid doing vandalism and just let him go, the little pat on the head or whatever, and it's, or just like all the kind of social graces that white people gave to each other, which are like most of what she's describing in that list from what I remember. I haven't read in a while, but it's basically a lot of that kind of stuff. That stuff seems to, when the social bonds themselves are being frayed and, everyone's becoming atomized, it's like, I think there is kind of less white privilege in the sense of like, it's just, I think these kind of social graces and, in-group benefits that are extended to every white person. I mean, I think, if you're on the outs, if you're poor, then you don't get a lot of that. And I think that it is that, just people being meaner to each other and all this
I
stuff.
forgot to mention, at least at the top of the episode, but just as an update, so Attorney General Keith Ellison upgraded the charges to, I think it was second-degree murder?
Second-degree murder, and he charged the other 3. Which, we'll see. Like, Keith Ellison is supposed to be, like, a real one.
There's this picture I just saw on Facebook that just makes you want to gag. So, there's a black church. Everyone has, their face masks on. And in the front is Joe Biden, and he's kneeling.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. I'm sorry. Did you hear what Biden said about this shit?
Yeah. Why don't you tell the folks, Peter? Yeah.
Why? Oh god. Because I've been going back and forth on whether he's just like... I used to think it was a little more malicious, but I think even with when he still had his brain, he was just like a total idiot. I mean, a racist idiot, but overall an idiot. Because he really just went with like the take of the liberal dad who watches too many cop shows, which is, why don't they just shoot them in the leg? Which is like, dude, nobody who ever is trained in handling a gun is ever told to shoot.
And if you want to get technical, like if you've ever been to a gun range, like first of all, the targets you get are like vitals.
Well, you need a big target. And that's why
you need a bit, right? And also it's a bigger target and we're likely to kill. Whereas with legs, it's like it's hard. It's easier to miss hitting a limb, like an arm or a leg. So you're trained. The chest is the biggest target.
And it's like that's why you fire a gun. Dude.
I mean, it's
because you're trying to kill someone.
But yeah, I've heard people say that like while they shoot him in the leg, it's like no, that's not how it works.
That's dumb. Like I said, that's like the liberal dad who watches too many cop shows, who understands that something's not right about the amount of police violence that gets glorified. Oh, that's another thing white people can do. Stop fucking watching Law and Order.
Yeah, Law and Order. Yeah.
Stop watching cop shows. Don't watch cop movies. Don't listen to your fucking murder podcasts, which are also propaganda. Yes. Stop ingesting cop propaganda.
There's so much. A lot of those like shows are just pure cop propaganda. Yeah, they are. Like, they're.
There you go. That one's for free.
Yeah, stop watching cop shows. Stop watching Law and Order. I used to like. Well, my mom used to watch Law and Order a lot when I was a kid. And then I got wiser.
It's fun to watch, I guess. It's a good theme. I still listen to the Hill Street Blues theme, which my dad would play. Yeah. I mean, but and if you're a TV writer, and I don't know if there are any TV writers that are listening to this, but like Hollywood, okay, you need to admit that you played a role in the problem. And you know what? Yeah, writers, WGA, don't write cop shows. I'm serious. Like, fucking unions need to understand this shit. I mean, I've heard people be like, yeah, try to kick cop unions out of the AFL-CIO. That's a mighty task. But there we go. This is the kind of stuff that we need to start thinking about.
And also, I don't know, have you heard of or read? So I think How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, like that's been flying off the shelf.
I've not read it. However, I do know that the University of Southern Maine, because that's right next to where I live, and I used to go to their library a lot back when it was open. They gave that book away to everyone. So they just had piles and piles of the book, like in the library lobby.
I haven't read the book, so I can't say with authority, but I have heard critiques that, like there's no specific tangible action item that are given. Because Iremy Osei Frempong was saying this on Champagne Sharks, that like he was saying that a lot of white liberal nonprofit ladies he knows who read the book, like it doesn't change white behavior. It just confirms they're a good person for reading the book, which is what I fear from this
that's
whole white ally industrial complex is like, okay, just read this checklist of books.
Well, Adam, you don't have to fear it because it's already here.
And it's kicking in high gear right now. It seems to be. I mean, at least, yeah. So that's I feel.
Well, yeah, the liberals, yes, working class white people that I've seen show out have been pretty real, and I mean that generally tracks to, the actual potential allies. It's not liberals. It's, it's members of the working class. They also do not have a positive relationship with the police, even if it's not, as terroristic. And two, they're the ones, who have that, they're antagonistic to the whole system, and they're the ones who really have the power to bring it down. It's not as we discussed in the Cabral piece, and other stuff. It's like the petty bourgeois doesn't really have that much power, guys. They really don't. It's all an illusion. Once you realize that the managers don't really have any power, then it's so liberating. You just don't listen to them. Just don't listen to them. I mean, the bourgeoisie wants to use, they still have the power and they can still crack skulls. And they'll have to do it, but you don't have, they have face some level of exposure by having to do it openly. They rely on the manager to carry that out in a more smooth way, but the manager doesn't have any real power.
No.
So yeah, look, if it's gonna take a while, and I mean, honestly, it's gonna take a little more immiseration, I think, as the trappings of American comfort become less and less, and people start to realize exactly what the raw level of existence is. But, hopefully, and that's just going to happen. It's not like an accelerationist thing. I mean, that's going to happen because capitalism, that's just the direction capitalism is going. But hopefully, as that happens, people will, and I think this is starting to happen, that people are just coming around to the idea that this is on us, and we have to do it. And, we don't have to listen to these people. They don't know our lives. They can't tell us what to do. Even though that's their whole thing, is telling us what to do. They, just don't listen to them. The right doesn't listen to them.
Yeah, and that's one thing I feel like what definitely is true and what's happening is that I think there's a collapse in faith and legitimacy in the current, I guess you could say, late capitalist liberal world order, political order, particularly in the United States. Yeah. Because if you look at, Joe Biden, just does not have anything to say about this fucking situation. I think everyone, that's why, that Obama speech that he gave, I was like, he's so out of touch with,
these motherfuckers, presided, they already got theirs in. I mean, they have nothing. I mean, all the people, the smart, quote unquote smart people with the right things to say that can fix the situation, they're so out of touch. I mean, the mayors are out of touch. The so-called black leadership, the black political class. You know who I haven't heard one word from, and I'm extremely happy about.
I was gonna say Al Sharpton.
I actually don't really have that much problem with Al Sharpton. No.
Oh, well.
Where is?
Yeah,
D-Ray?
He's been a little. Well, he's out there, but he's not as out in front as in 2014. That's true. Yeah. So the whole black the black intelligentsia / political class, they pretty much have nothing to say. I mean, we didn't even go into T.I. and Killer Mike's just weak response to this issue.
Oh,
that's another episode. But I think if you look at all the levers of the system that make piecemeal reform possible, they're just out of touch. They're not they're largely irrelevant. No one's really listening to them, and they're largely out of touch. They don't know what's going on. And the thing is, they don't have any answers. They have no fucking answers because we've tried all their answers, and especially with Obama, like I said a couple episodes ago, was basically the zenith of black integration and assimilation. And it's like, even under Obama, the problem of racist police violence is not fixed. So it's like, okay, even the Democrats, the black Democrats, who were preaching so much about liberal representation, right? Like liberal representation, assimilation, integrate. We've done all that. We pretty much reached its peaking point in terms of that approach, and it still has not worked. So all the previous approaches, I think, are becoming more and more discredited with large numbers of people, and I think that's what we're witnessing. In terms of where it goes, who knows? But I think people are just fed up with like the old rules. It's I think it's very, very clear right now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily proclaim the premature death of liberalism, because if you're really thinking about it, I mean, it's pretty in there and it's had a good run. And really, the civil rights movement was like the crowning achievement of liberalism. And it's been riding off that, and you know, it's gonna take a little more for it to really die out, but it's definitely on the back foot. This time it is definitely quieter, and I think they have a correct understanding that maybe people don't really want to hear from them as much.
Well, I think the liberal project isn't really, it's not dead, but it's like, I think more and more people.
It takes a while for that to really radiate out to the entire country, and not just in, you know, the kind of insular online, left spaces where, we're done with it, but it may take a while. But at the same time, you know, this is one thing I do want to communicate to people, is that, like, we have to help put it out. You know, stuff doesn't fall on its own. Everything, if you do not hit it, it will not fall, right? So we have to take the action to, you know, assert, you know, which is not like which is not hijacking or co-opting it in any way. I mean, this is a, you know, correct reflection of the sentiment of the masses, is like, we want that like the whole thing's got to be put under question. The whole thing's got to be taken apart. And that's the compromise, is restructuring the police system, because the other thing is bringing the entire system down.
So, that's the thing, is like, because even with the whole cops kneeling, there was a video in Flint where like the cops put away their batons and marched with the protesters. I was thinking like, wait, I was thinking it was one of those situations in which the police stopped protecting the regime and joined the people, and that's like when it's game over for the ruling class. But then I was like, oh wait, this is just like a conventional photo op.
No, that only happens when the CIA is involved, right? Like they did in Bolivia. Not gonna do it.
I was just at least glad in that particular instance, not the whole fucking kneeling and shit. That like, I'm glad that they're not beating the shit out of people, because like I
thought it was interesting that happened in Flint.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, you know, a place like Flint, it's like usually there's like a really psycho kind of sheriff, and sheriffs are usually like the most psycho of all the people. And I will say, people are like, oh, well, that's because they're, you know, people are like, we should elect people, and it's like, on some level, elections, like, people, like, for law enforcement can, you know, that gives them an impetus to play people's worst impulses. Case in point, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who keeps getting reelected. Though I guess he doesn't now. I don't even know what happened to him. I hope he's dead. But
satire.
Yeah, I mean, because that's not satire. I'm just saying I hope that he's dead. I'm not saying I'm going to.
Yeah, we just want to make that clear. We just do not want that to come back at us for liability purposes.
Man, if Arpaio's listening to this, that'd be hilarious. Flint is like a place that has just gotten the raw ass end of capitalism, and it is to the point where it's like, even the ruling class, even the cops have to be like, look, you know, there's nothing to protect. There's not really even a ruling class to protect in
right.
a place like Flint.
Yeah. This is a really weird situation because it's like a lot of times at revolutions, there's like a ruling establishment, and then like once the state apparatus turns against the ruling establishment, that's when it's game over. But in this instance, it's weird because it's like no one's really protesting the Trump administration or the American ruling regime. It's like everyone just hates police, rightly so. So it's a very different. So that's what I've been trying to figure out. Is like, how does this play out? Which we'll see. But yeah, cops kneeling with protesters, like all those kumbaya photo ops, like that's all. Yeah, it's all bullshit.
Well, there have been a couple of places where it's literally like a head fake, and they're like kneeling to distract them, and they go tear gas them, because cops are psychopaths. That's why 98% of them are cops.
Yeah. Anyway, we're at an hour 10. I think we've covered enough. Anything else you want to mention, Peter? Or
that was pretty wall to wall. We'll put some bail funds in the links in the show notes, I guess. Everyone stay safe, stay strong. Don't fall for there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of people trying to turn us around. Don't fall for it. Just stay resolved. Stay safe, stay out of jail. And, keep fighting, because we have as much chance to turn this into some real shit as anyone does. And so we don't know where it's going to go, but we can still have we can still have a way to shape it and, kind of hopefully move it in.
Before we sign off, I do have a quick announcement. So wait, this probably, I don't know if this will go out. If this goes out before this,
I'm gonna.
Okay, yeah. So we're recording this Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. On Friday, June 5th, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be on an online panel with the Coalition for Civil Freedoms, and we're going to be talking about. So with all the stuff that's going on, there's a case of a Somali Swedish prisoner named Mohammed Youssef, who is a victim of extraordinary rendition and who died of COVID-19 in a U.S. federal prison. And so I'm going to be on a panel with mostly I say like all Black Muslims. I'm going to be the only Black person who's not a Muslim, but we're going to be trying to make a connection between the criminalization of Blackness in America and the racism that sustains the war on terror. That's a Zoom panel, but I think by the time this episode goes out, I'll try to get the link for it and put it in the show notes. So if people are interested, I'll be on that panel. And I think it'll be it'll be a really interesting discussion. I'm very excited for it because a lot of my journalistic work the past decade revolves around these kinds of issues, like the war on terror and systemic racism, and making the connections between the two. So I'm personally very excited. So I just wanted to make that announcement. And yeah, I'll put hopefully I'll talk to my friend Lena about getting the link and putting it in the show notes. So like, let's say, by the time this podcast episode does go out and people are interested in watching it, I'll try to put the link in the show notes. But the title of it is I Can't Breathe, a conversation on Black lives, racist policing, and the COVID-19 death of a prisoner. So I'm very excited. It'll be a Facebook live stream with Coalition for Civil Freedoms. And I'm pretty sure if you look up Coalition for Civil Freedoms, go on their Facebook, look them up. You can find the video and definitely follow the kind of work that they do. Because a lot of the work that they do working with prisoners is very, very important. So I'm very excited about this. I just wanted to announce it, and it definitely relates to a lot of things that we talk about on this podcast. The issues that impact Black people, and issues like, the episode we did with Dr. Colette Harris about COVID-19, how it's impacting Black communities. So anyway, I wanted to make that announcement. I'm very excited. I'd love to just want to share that with you guys. So anyway, yeah, that I just want to get that out the way. Support independent Black media like Real Sun Car Hours, our podcast. www.patreon.com/realsuncarhours. Again, patreon.com/realsuncarhours. Follow us on Twitter at Sankara Hours. SANKARA hours, like the time. And I'll end with this. I mentioned Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and this is a phrase he used to say: keep the faith. So, for all you folks out there who are out there protesting and angry and not sure of where this is going to go and feeling uncertain, just keep the faith. Power to the people. See ya.
Yeah, we'll get it one of these days.
All right, peace.